Never start your English learning journey with a textbook. The fastest way to reach fluency is hidden inside of one of the greatest stories ever told. And today, Emma and I are going to show you exactly how to steal it.
Oh, I love that opener, Alex. Very dramatic. Very fitting for today's topic.
Right? I mean, we are talking about Lord of the Rings today, so it had to feel a little epic.
It absolutely had to. Okay, so for our listeners who are just joining us for the first time, hi, I'm Emma.
And I'm Alex.
And this is the Fluent English podcast, where we just chat, we talk like two normal Americans would talk about everyday stuff, and our listeners, people who are learning English, get to hear real, natural English conversation.
Exactly. No scripts with perfect grammar, no slow robotic speech, just us talking the way we actually talk.
Which means sometimes Alex goes off on tangents.
I prefer the word detours.
He prefers detours. Okay, so today we picked a really fun topic. We are going to talk about the Lord of the Rings as a way to learn English. We'll talk about the story, the characters, some vocabulary from the books and the movies, and why stories in general are just so powerful for language learning.
And we'll keep it simple and conversational because that's what this show is all about. You don't have to know anything about Lord of the Rings to follow along. If you do know it, great. You'll probably enjoy this even more. But if you don't, no worries, we'll explain everything.
Perfect. Okay, Alex, let's just start from the beginning. For anyone who has never heard of Lord of the Rings, what is it?
Okay, so Lord of the Rings is a fantasy story. It was written by an author named J.R.R. Tolkien. His full name is John Ronald Reuel Tolkien, which is a mouthful, so everyone just says Tolkien.
Tolkien. Good. That's a useful word, by the way. Mouthful. We say it's a mouthful when something is hard to say or very long to say.
Right, like if someone has a really long name or a complicated word, you'd say, wow, that's a mouthful.
Exactly. Go ahead, Alex. Keep going.
So Tolkien wrote The Lord of the Rings as a trilogy, which means it's a story in 3 parts, 3 books. The first book is called The Fellowship of the Ring, the second is The Two Towers, and the third is The Return of the King.
And then Peter Jackson, the director, turned those 3 books into 3 movies in the early 2000s. I think the first one came out in 2001?
Yes, 2001. And they were huge. They were massive. Everyone was talking about them.
They really were. I was pretty young, but I remember seeing the movies and just being completely blown away.
Same. I think I watched them with my dad. He was a big fan of the books.
Oh, nice. So it kind of spans generations, right? Like the books are from the 1950s, and then the movies brought a whole new generation of fans.
Totally. And honestly, that's one reason why it's such great material for learning English. So many people know it. You can talk about it with people from all different backgrounds, all different ages.
That's such a good point. Okay, so let's talk about the actual story. What is Lord of the Rings about, like at its core?
At its core, it's about a journey, a quest. There's a very powerful, very dangerous ring, and a group of people need to destroy it before an evil force gets it back.
And the evil force is Sauron.
Yes, Sauron. He's the main villain. He created this ring, and the ring has a huge amount of dark power. If Sauron gets the ring back, he will basically take over the entire world.
Dark power. That's such a great phrase. We use dark in English a lot to describe things that are evil or dangerous or gloomy. Like, he has a dark side, or she was in a dark place emotionally.
Yes, exactly. Dark can describe actual darkness, like at night, but it can also describe something negative or evil, very common in English.
Okay, so the main character, let's talk about him.
Right. So the main character is a hobbit named Frodo Baggins. And hobbits, for our listeners, are fictional creatures. They look like small humans. They're shorter than regular people, they have big, hairy feet, and they live in cozy little holes in the ground called hobbit holes.
And I love that the hobbit holes are described as very comfortable and homey. Like, they're not dirty or scary. They're actually really nice inside.
Yes, hobbits love comfort. They love good food, a good fire, a comfortable chair. They're kind of homebodies.
Oh, homebody. That's a great word. A homebody is someone who prefers staying home to going out. Someone who likes being indoors in a familiar, cozy space.
Right. Like, I'm kind of a homebody on weekday evenings. After work, I just want to be home.
Same, honestly, especially in winter.
For sure. So Frodo is a homebody hobbit. He's not adventurous at all, at least not at the start. But then this whole responsibility falls on him. He has to carry the ring to a place called Mount Doom, which is a volcano, and throw the ring into the fire to destroy it.
And here's the thing that I think is really interesting and really relevant to language learning. Frodo doesn't want to do it. He doesn't feel ready. He's scared. He's small. He's not a warrior or a hero in the traditional sense.
Right, he's not the most obvious choice for this huge task.
And that's kind of how learning a language feels, right? Like, you look at this big, complicated language and you think, I'm not the right person for this. I can't do this. I'm not smart enough, not talented enough.
That's such a good connection. And in the story, one of the most famous lines is from Frodo's mentor, a wizard named Gandalf. Frodo says something like, "I wish the ring had never come to me. I wish none of this had happened." And Gandalf says, "So do all who live to see such times, but that is not for them to decide. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given us."
That quote gives me chills every time.
Right? And for language learners, that's actually a really powerful idea. You didn't choose to be born speaking a different language. You didn't choose that English is the global language of business and entertainment. But here you are, and all you have to decide is what to do with the time you have.
That's beautiful. Okay, I didn't expect this episode to get deep so quickly.
Lord of the Rings does that to people.
It really does. Okay, let's talk about some of the other characters, because there's so many great ones, and they all use such interesting language.
Yes, so Frodo doesn't go on this journey alone. He has a group of companions. The group is called the Fellowship of the Ring, which is actually the name of the first book.
And fellowship is such an interesting word. You don't hear it that often in everyday English, but it's worth knowing.
Right. Fellowship basically means companionship, or a group of people who share something together, a common goal or a common bond. You might hear it in a church context, like fellowship with other members, or in an academic context, like a fellowship at a university, which is a kind of scholarship or position.
And in the story, the fellowship is made up of different kinds of characters. Hobbits, a wizard, humans, an elf, and a dwarf.
Yes. And each of them is very different. That's another great thing for English learners. The characters speak in slightly different ways. Gandalf, the wizard, speaks very formally, very wisely. The hobbits speak in a more casual, everyday way. The elf, Legolas, is very poetic and graceful in how he talks.
Oh, that's such a smart observation. Because in real life, different people speak differently too. Your boss might speak more formally than your best friend. An older person might use different expressions than someone your age.
Exactly. And getting used to those different registers, that's a word for different levels of formality and language. Getting used to those different registers is a really important part of becoming fluent.
Register. That's a good word. We use register in language learning to talk about how formal or informal something is. Like, that's too formal for this situation, or switch to a more casual register.
Right. Okay, let's talk about Samwise Gamgee, because I think Sam is actually the most relatable character for English learners.
Oh, interesting. Why do you say that?
So Sam is Frodo's best friend. He's also a hobbit, and he comes on this journey basically to take care of Frodo. He's loyal, he's hardworking, he never gives up even when things are really, really hard.
He's so sweet.
He is. And he often says things that are very simple but very profound. Profound means deep or meaningful. Like Sam says at one point, "There's some good in this world, Mr. Frodo, and it's worth fighting for."
Very simple sentence structure, but so powerful.
Yes, and that's the beauty of it. You don't need complicated language to say something meaningful. Sam speaks in very plain, honest English, short sentences, everyday words, and yet he says some of the most memorable things in the whole story.
That's a great lesson for learners. You don't have to use big, fancy words to communicate well. Clarity and sincerity go a long way.
Go a long way. Good phrase. We say something goes a long way when it has a big positive effect, even though it's a small thing.
Like a simple thank you goes a long way, or a little patience goes a long way.
Exactly. It's a really common expression.
Okay, let's shift a little. Let's talk about some vocabulary and phrases from Lord of the Rings that are actually used in real English, like words that Tolkien either invented or popularized, or phrases that people still say today.
Oh, this is fun. So one that people might not know is the word tween.
In Lord of the Rings, Tolkien uses tween to describe the years between childhood and adulthood in Hobbit culture, like between ages 20 and 33 for hobbits.
And now, tween in modern English means a child between about 10 and 12 years old, kind of between being a child and being a teenager.
Yes, some people think Tolkien actually coined it, but it was probably already in limited use. Either way, it's interesting how it overlaps.
Coined, by the way, means to invent or create a word or phrase. He coined the term. Very useful expression.
Another great one is the word shire. In Lord of the Rings, the Shire is the homeland of the hobbits. It's a peaceful rural area. But shire is also a real English word for a type of county or district, especially in England. You see it in place names like Yorkshire, Shropshire, Oxfordshire.
I love that connection. So when you learn Lord of the Rings vocabulary, you're sometimes learning real historical English at the same time.
Exactly. Tolkien was actually a professor of language. He studied Old English, Medieval English, Norse mythology, all of that. So he put a huge amount of real linguistics into his world.
That's so cool. And it shows in the writing. The language feels rich and deep because it actually is.
Right. Okay, here's a phrase I love from the movies. I cannot carry the ring for you, but I can carry you. Sam says this to Frodo near the end when Frodo is completely exhausted and can barely walk.
And I will not cry on this podcast. I will not.
No promises from me. So what's great about the sentence for learners is the structure. I cannot do X, but I can do Y. It's a very useful sentence pattern for expressing limitations and alternatives at the same time.
Oh, that's a perfect grammar point without making it feel like a grammar lesson. Like, I can't come to your party, but I can meet you for lunch beforehand. Same structure.
Yes. Or I can't answer that question right now, but I can send you an email with the information. Very practical in business or everyday situations.
Love it. Okay, let's talk about some of the more dramatic, poetic language, because Lord of the Rings has a lot of that too, and it's worth knowing even if you wouldn't use it in everyday conversation.
Right. So Tolkien wrote a lot of poetry and songs within the story. The characters sometimes break into song, which sounds weird, but it actually works in the books.
It's less prominent in the movies, but in the books, it's a real thing.
Yes, and there are some phrases that became very well known. Not all those who wander are lost, for example. That's a line from a poem in the book about one of the characters.
And people put that on T-shirts, mugs, Instagram captions. It became a real cultural phrase.
It did, and it's beautiful, right? In English, to wander means to walk or travel without a fixed destination, like you're just going wherever feels right.
And the phrase suggests that just because someone doesn't follow a straight, obvious path doesn't mean they're confused or in trouble. They might just be exploring.
Which is, again, relevant to language learning. Your path might not look like everyone else's path. You might be learning through podcasts instead of classes, through movies instead of textbooks. That doesn't mean you're lost.
That's a really encouraging thought. Okay, I want to talk about one more character before we wrap up the story summary, and that's Gollum, because Gollum's way of speaking is really fascinating from a language perspective.
Oh, Gollum is incredible. So Gollum is a character who used to be a hobbit-like creature, but he had the ring for hundreds of years and it corrupted him, changed him into something twisted.
Corrupted is a great word. To corrupt something means to damage it, to make it impure or evil. You hear it with people, like power corrupted him, or with technology, like the file got corrupted.
Very useful in both contexts. So Gollum is corrupted by the ring, and he's obsessed with it. He calls it my precious. And he has a very distinctive way of speaking. He refers to himself in the third person sometimes. He uses bad grammar on purpose. He says things like, we wants it, instead of we want it.
And that's interesting from a language perspective because it's intentional bad grammar. Tolkien made him speak incorrectly to show that he's unstable, broken.
Yes, so if you're learning English and you notice Gollum's speech sounds wrong, that's the point. That's deliberate. Don't copy Gollum.
Do not copy Gollum, unless you're at a costume party.
Unless you're at a costume party, yes. But it's fascinating because it shows how much grammar and word choice tell you about a character's personality and mental state.
Okay, let's zoom out a little. Why is using stories specifically, not just Lord of the Rings, but stories in general, why is that such an effective way to learn English?
Great question. So I think there are a few reasons.
First, stories give you context. When you learn vocabulary from a list, you just get a word and a definition. But in a story, you see how the word is used, in what situation, with what emotion, and your brain remembers it much better.
That's so true. I still remember learning the word desperate as a kid from a book I was reading. The character was desperate to save her friend, and I could feel it. I've never forgotten that word.
Exactly. Emotion is like glue for memory. When you feel something while learning, the learning sticks.
And stories also repeat vocabulary naturally. In Lord of the Rings, words like shadow, darkness, courage, burden, they come up again and again in different scenes. So you're reinforcing the vocabulary without even trying.
Burden is such a key word in Lord of the Rings, by the way. The ring is described as a burden, something heavy that Frodo has to carry, not just physically, but emotionally.
A burden in English can be a literal heavy weight or a metaphorical one, like she carries a heavy emotional burden, or I don't want to be a burden to my family. Very common.
And it's used a lot in formal and everyday English. The burden of proof, for example, is a legal term. The burden is on someone to prove something.
Oh, yes, you hear that in legal dramas a lot. Very useful.
So the second reason stories work well for language learning is that they keep you engaged. When you're engaged, when you actually want to know what happens next, you naturally pay more attention. You read more carefully, you listen more carefully.
Right. Nobody falls asleep wondering what happens to Frodo on the slopes of Mount Doom. You are in it.
You are fully in it. And that engagement carries over to the language itself. You start noticing how sentences are built because you want to understand the story.
The third reason, and this one I think is underrated, stories expose you to cultural knowledge. And cultural knowledge is a huge part of fluency.
Yes, because so much of everyday English is built on shared cultural references. People make Lord of the Rings jokes, they quote it, they use phrases from it without even realizing it sometimes.
Like, if someone says, "You shall not pass" at a door or a gate as a joke, you need to know that's from Gandalf. Otherwise, you're confused.
Right. Or someone calls a long, difficult task a quest for Mount Doom. Or they call something precious to them, my precious, as a joke. These are cultural touchstones.
Touchstone. Great word. A touchstone is something that is used as a standard or reference point. A cultural touchstone is something so widely known that it becomes a common reference in conversation.
Love it. And Lord of the Rings is absolutely a cultural touchstone in English-speaking countries, especially in the US, UK, Australia, New Zealand. Huge in New Zealand because that's where the movies were filmed.
New Zealand has beautiful landscapes, by the way. If you ever get a chance to see photos or visit, it's stunning. The filmmakers chose it because it really looks like a fantasy world.
It really does. Okay, let's do a little practical section. For our learners listening, here are some specific ways you can use Lord of the Rings to improve your English.
Yes, practical tips, let's go.
Tip 1. Watch the movies with English subtitles. Not your native language subtitles, English subtitles. That way, you're hearing the English and reading it at the same time, and your brain starts to connect spoken English with written English.
And the movies are long, the extended editions especially, so you get a lot of listening practice.
Tip 2. Read the books. Start with The Hobbit if Lord of the Rings feels too long or too complex. The Hobbit is shorter, lighter, more playful. It's actually a great book for intermediate English learners.
I'd say upper intermediate, maybe. There are some old-fashioned words and long descriptions, but it's beautiful writing and very worth the effort.
And you can also get audiobook versions, read by professional narrators. Listening while reading along is a powerful combination.
Tip 3. Look up phrases but you don't understand instead of skipping them. Lord of the Rings has a lot of rich vocabulary. Valor, peril, ominous, steadfast, forsaken. These are not super common in everyday conversation, but knowing them builds a strong vocabulary foundation.
And ominous is a word worth pausing on. Ominous means giving a feeling that something bad is going to happen. Like, there was an ominous silence before the storm. Very atmospheric word.
Love that. Very dramatic. Very Lord of the Rings.
Tip 4, find a community. There are huge Lord of the Rings fan communities online in English. Forums, Reddit threads, fan sites, YouTube channels with analysis and discussion. Engaging with those communities means you're reading and sometimes writing real English about a topic you're genuinely interested in.
And caring about the topic makes the language feel less like work.
Exactly. Tip 5, and this is maybe my favorite, try summarizing the story out loud in English. Just put your phone down or close the book and say what happened in your own words. It forces you to use the vocabulary actively, not just passively receive it.
That's such a good one. Speaking is the hardest skill for most learners because it requires you to produce language in real time, without editing. Summarizing stories is a low-pressure way to practice that.
And you don't need a perfect summary. Just start talking, even if it sounds messy at first. So there's this hobbit, and he has this ring, and it's bad, and he has to go to this mountain. That's a start.
That is genuinely a fine start. You communicated the core idea. That's fluency, getting the idea across.
Before we wrap up, Emma, I want to do one more thing. Let's each share a favorite moment or quote from Lord of the Rings and explain what we love about the English in it.
Oh, I love that idea. You go first.
Okay, mine is from Gandalf again, and it's all we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given us. What I love about this sentence, besides the meaning, is the grammar. What is given to us is passive voice. The time was given to us by life, by fate, by whatever. We didn't choose it. But what to do is active. We choose our actions. So in one sentence, Tolkien is capturing this balance between what's in our control and what isn't. That's profound, and you can feel the structure supporting the meaning.
That gave me chills again. Okay, mine is simpler, but I love it just as much. Sam says to Frodo at one point, "I can't carry it for you, but I can carry you." The repetition of carry with two different objects, the ring and Frodo, it shows how even when we can't solve someone's problem, we can still support the person. And I love that in English, carry can mean both a physical action and an emotional metaphor. She carried a lot of grief. He carries his team. So that one word does double duty in the sentence.
That's such a sharp observation, and it shows how attentive Tolkien was to word choice. Every word is doing work.
Every word is doing work. That's a great phrase for writing and language learning both. Make every word count.
Okay, let's bring this home. For everyone listening, we hope today's episode gave you something to think about. Some new vocabulary, some inspiration, and maybe even a reason to pick up Lord of the Rings or watch the movies if you haven't.
And remember, learning English doesn't have to feel like a chore. It can feel like an adventure, like a quest even.
One ring to rule them all, one story to teach you English.
That was terrible, Alex.
It was a little terrible.
It was very terrible, but also kind of perfect for this episode, so we'll keep it.
We'll keep it.
Okay, friends, that is it for today's episode of the Fluent English Podcast. If you enjoyed this, share it with someone you know who is learning English, because word of mouth is honestly how small podcasts like ours grow.
And if you have a topic you'd like us to chat about, a movie, a book, a theme, a type of English conversation you want to hear, let us know. We read everything.
Until next time, keep listening, keep practicing, and remember, all you have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to you.
Well borrowed, Emma.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.